Right.
Sean, first of all, reflecting on Sunday, I know the result itself was disappointing, but in terms of a performance and certainly defensively, is that as proud as you've been of this team this year?
No, I don't think it's that. I think I was pleased with the application because, you know, we'd secured our Premier League status and, you know, still important games to finish and finish right. And I was pleased with that. They're a top side, we know that. And as you said, you have to defend. It's very rare you don't have to defend against them sides, whether it be for a lot of the game or some of the game. I thought they did well, but no, I was more interested in the applications of the performance, and I thought that was spot on. You know, there was a team that we wanted to take the game on properly, and I thought they did. It's just that Man City are a top side, you know, and they found a way, as they have done many times this season.
In some respects, they did that performance sort of epitomise in that one game how far this team has progressed over the course of the season. I mean, we spoke last week about the form since the turn of the year, and
no, I think it's different because you're playing against them side. You have to defend a lot. You know, I think there's been more to our performances than just defending since the turn. I mean, we've outscored a number of teams, as you'll know, and some big teams, and you know, so I think there's been a lot of attack in play. I think we've used the way that we work effectively. And we have defended well, don't get me wrong. But against them side, you end up defending a lot, you know, and if you open the pitch up too early, we've all seen what can happen. So it's different against them sides, you know, and I think the other teams who've played, with all due respect, you know, not necessarily with themselves, and Liverpool are running away with it, then we've been in every game, you know, and the ones that we've lost, we've still been in it, you know, and the margins have been tight. And then the ones we've won, I think we've won very well. And you know, mixed our play well and been very effective to score enough goals and keep it tight at the other end. So I've been pleased from the turn all the way through to now, and we do want to finish right.
How much of a fillip would it be for everyone here then if you could win out through these final two games and maybe get up to 15th, 14th, 13th, whatever?
Well, let's not run away with ourselves. It's been a tough season, very tough season. A very rewarding season, actually, for me as the manager, for my staff and the players, because, you know, things were not right, obviously, results-wise particularly, up until the turn. And a lot going on, you know, but to come through that and have the clarity and the work and the belief in what we do, to come through it with the points we've got on the table in the second half of the season, that's really, really pleasing for me as a manager. And arguably my best, you know, strangely, people wouldn't think it, one of my best achievements, I think, is to stay true to what we believe, stay true to the staff and the players, and keep working at what we do to make sure we turn things around. And the players deserve a massive amount of credit in that, of course.
How tough is it to stay true? Because, look, I've been at press conferences in the first half of the season when you said we're not that far away, we're going. And I think everyone else outside the club would have looked at it and said, well, really? And yet, like you say, you stayed true, and the second half of the season would appear at least to have borne out those ideas.
Well, people sometimes forget, you know, a lot of opinion now about football from everywhere, and usually you are put in this role for a reason, and that's because you know what you're doing, or a version of knowing what you're doing. People sometimes surprised at it. It's one of the rare jobs, I speak about this a lot, where people do obviously all think they know more than me. That's standard. But you know, I think most managers are put in a position of being the manager for a reason, or head coach, whichever term you want to use, and that's because they've got a grasp on what they're doing. So I don't really get swayed too much by the outside noise. There's lots of it. I didn't as a player when I was playing. I stayed focused on what I thought was correct for me and the team, and I haven't as a coach or a manager. So that sounds easy. It's not that easy. It's still emotional. You still get involved in it. You still get ups and downs yourself, let alone the players. You know, and you think you're examining everything and trying to get the right outcomes, and you know, am I missing anything, and all them thoughts. So you do have that, but I've got a strong belief in what I think is correct for the players, and I've always made it about the players. You know, they come first, and I'm pleased with the work that they were doing, even when the results were going against us. A lot of people were speaking, using that word pride. I said I'm just as proud of these players in the early part of the season I ever have been, because you can easy to be proud of people when they're doing well, not so easy, you know, when they're not. But underneath the results, we've got a group of people who care. They give everything, and I think that's been shown. So like I say, it's a lot to make sense of, and I've strangely a bit of relief as well as enjoyment. But I think I've examined it so far. We'll do more so with the staff after the season, but been very pleased, you know, on my part, the staff's part, and the players certainly playing their part in the turnaround. But we've got to finish it right. We don't want to just sit here and talk as if it's all done. It's not. Two important games for different reasons, and mainly to continue playing right and finishing it right.
What about Everton then? The first of those two important games, because Charlie Taylor's just been in here and said he felt that defeat at home was perhaps the low point of the season for this team. So is there a point to prove on Friday night?
I don't think there's a point to prove other than to ourselves. I think even that was a strange game. A lot was made of that game, and you understand why, because of the scoreline, of course. I think they had 3 efforts at goal in the first half and scored all 3. And they're the things as a manager you have to look at and compute and think, well, how often does that happen? But the facts are the facts. We lost 5-1, and we had to do better, of course. I think there was a realignment after that. I don't think there was too much drastically, as we spoke about, as wrong as maybe people thought. But I think there was a realignment, to make sure everyone's nose was clearly pointing in the right direction. And I think that's an important factor. And then on top of that, I think, once that base is in place, as I've spoken many times, we've got a strong base here, what we believe, the culture and the environment. Then, of course, you add the tactical application, and you want the players to play well technically, of course. But the social, mental side, the physical side are massive parts of the game. And I think we corrected that and have delivered that very well from that Everton game. But I don't think it's about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving ourselves right and continuing the good work that the players have done in the second half of the season.
And if I can ask you finally about the issue of concussion, obviously people were quite worried, rightly so, when they saw Jan Vertonghen last night in the Champions League semi-final. I know you've spoken on different subjects before about the way things are done in other sports. Is there something to be said about that if you're going to go down this road of looking at a concussion protocol, safety of players, welfare, which has got to be paramount? I
think, well, first of all, I didn't see it. I was at my back specialist last night getting my own situation sorted out. So I haven't seen the incident. But generally speaking, I think there's enough science and people involved who can make them decisions. I know there's been some change in the protocols and the thought and who makes what decision. I think it's an ongoing thing. But there's certainly with people of a much higher skill set than me who can answer that question. I can only give my own personal view when I played, but we didn't have the information to hand then. It was usually how you felt. They'd do the necessary checks then, and if you felt that you could carry on, you did. But now that's maybe something that's changing. That's maybe something that with certain science and checks, they maybe make that decision for you, obviously. But like I said, there's people way more qualified in this area than me to decide what the absolute protocols are going to be. But I'm sure they'll keep analysing it. And like I said, I haven't seen it from last night, but the bigger picture, I think, is they will make sense of the different ways of working, and probably it may well end with the decision being out of the players' hands. But then it's complicated. It is really complicated, because when you're playing and you want to play and you want to do well and you want to achieve, that drive, if you didn't have that, by the way, you wouldn't get anywhere. But of course, there are medical moments where people who are much more qualified than yourself can make that decision for you. So I think it'll find its way, and the right people will make good decisions.
Well, I was going to say, on that basic level, because in the throes of a game, the passion, the energy, the adrenaline, like I say, when you've played, if you feel all right, put your hand up, you're straight back on. Does it have to be taken out of the hands of the management team, coaching staff, players? Somebody who's an expert, basically a medical expert, has to sort of.
Well, that's what I presume. That's what they're going to look at, And there's been some movement in it the last couple of seasons anyway. But I think they will look at who decides what. It is tough though, because we're human beings, and you can feel right and not be right. You can feel wrong and actually be better than you thought. Sometimes it does go into the player's hands slightly. But I'm sure I presume they're working on different ways and methods of checking that are out of your control, but do decide whether you're in a situation to carry on or not. And the more they define them ways, then I think that would be very helpful, because players might make a bullish decision on being proud and wanting to do well when it's not the right decision to make. So I think that's what they're trying to define. It's not easy. It's not as easy as everyone thinks, I don't think.
Sean, how highly do you rate Everton and the form they're in at the moment?
Well, certainly the form's been very good. I think it seems to me they continue to make sense of their season, ups and downs, early season and finding their way, but latterly they've done very well. On paper, like a lot of squads in the Premier League, they've got some very good players. And I think bonding that into a team is probably what the manager's been trying to do and the players have been trying to do. And certainly more recently, there's been very strong signs of that.
How much confidence were you all had to take from some of the results you've had on the road at some of the teams at the top end of the table, Chelsea away recently in particular?
Yeah, I thought we did very well at Manchester United a few months ago. I thought we did very well for different reasons against Chelsea to get that last point, which was the decider really in making sure, guaranteeing our Premier League status. And and some good results and good performances in between. The likes of Bournemouth, I thought Bournemouth was arguably one of our better Premier League away performances for sure. And you've got to turn up, you've got to play well because they are in good form. They have got some, key players who can affect the game. And they are in a good situation, with what they're trying to achieve. And they'll want to finish right. Last home game, all of that sort of psychology goes into it. We want to take it on as we did the Manchester City game and deliver a performance. A different kind, that one. We're hoping, not that easy, we're hoping to, not have to defend and to find our sort of way of playing that can affect them as well. It is more tricky when you haven't got the ball for starters against Man City, so that can be more tricky. But I do appreciate that Everton have got some very good players and they can keep the ball as well and they can open the pitch up, which they try to do. Roughly stick with a format, or they certainly have done in the second half of the season, tactical format, and they are a good side, but most are in the Premier League. As I've spoken early season, I thought the top six would be miles away, and they are. Not because I had a crystal ball and not because I'm being self-righteous, I just did. I thought this year they'd be really powerful. And the top two have surprised me how far they've gone again. But Everton are not far behind that. The likes of Everton, they've invested. That investment is beginning to show signs of coming together. They're not a million miles behind that. They're a good side.
Just going back to something you said earlier on in the press conference about the journey you've had this season and the sense of satisfaction you've got now about how it's all worked out. In some ways, are you as satisfied, as pleased with this year as you were with last year? Way
more satisfied as a manager. When things are going right for you still have to manage it, of course, and you still have to keep the direction, the focus and the energy of the players. But when they're not going right for you, how do you change it? How do you turn that around? How do you work with your staff and the players to make sure that turnaround happens? And I've been really pleased. For me, it's been a tough season for me and for the team and the staff. But I've been really pleased on my part of thinking things through, trying to make the right decisions, effective decisions. I've been really pleased with that, and that's. I was saying after the last game, or the point at Chelsea is that people from the outside probably think we've had a poor season. I think we've had a fantastic season. Very, very unlikely that we go into any season just going, we'll just walk it, no problem, we'll be fine. Every season's a challenge, and I expected no different. I expected more of a challenge. I will say, not imbalanced that, not as much as it was. I thought early season would be better value than 12 points out of 19 games. So I wasn't expecting that. That was a surprise to me. But I didn't remotely think we'd be running away with it and be sitting on, 25 points necessarily after 19 games. I thought it'd be, a tough season with the Europa and et cetera, trying to work in the market. It's always difficult for us with the finances here and finding that balance to still be effective. But to make sure the second half of the season has gone as how it is and play my part through the staff and the players, I've been really pleased with that.
And the players as well. I mean, how much credit do they deserve for just sticking to the task, staying true to what they believe in, listening to what you want and what your staff want as well? Because speaking to Matt Loughton earlier, also Charlie Taylor in here as well, he said particularly after the Everton game, it was like rock bottom almost, in terms of their belief and confidence. Well,
I've sometimes spoke to the staff about a team bottoming out, and I thought we did that day. And it's a hard thing to put your finger on, but it's almost like a collective thing where that's enough. And you can't. It's a human spirit thing, I don't mean all the players are talking to about it. It's just like an undertone, right? That's us. We've hit the lowest point of the season. Now, what can we do to change that around? And I think the change around is the key thing. And I think the players deserve a huge amount of credit. For early season, a bit of confusion, many different reasons why, including injuries, of course. And that's been an ongoing thing, which is unfortunate this season. Our first season, really, since I've been here, we've had that. And then to piece it all back together, to deliver the performances. And don't forget, we had a great run of 8 unbeaten, but it's not done at 8. You still need loads more points after that. So then to stay focused on the back of 4 losses and then regain that feeling and take on another 10 points out of the next 4 games, I mean, that takes a lot. That takes a lot of it takes a lot of physical power. It takes a lot of ability. It takes a lot of tactical understanding, but also takes a massive mentality. And I think it was Ian Holloway. I've said it a few times. I thought it was a good tag many moons ago. He said they've got a strong jaw, and I think he's right. I think this team has a strong jaw, and they've shown that with their mentality to turn things around. So, no, an enormous amount of credit to the players, but also my staff. I think my staff have been very diligent to stay focused, to stay calm through a very testing period and come out the end of it.
Just to ask you about goal line clearances. Obviously, Matt was so close to stopping that goal at the weekend. Ben Mee stopped one from Jesus just after that. Is that something that the club trains on? Is it something that you speak to the players?
I think you want your defenders to work properly, and we I often say to them that's as important as a goal. And I think good habits stand you in good stead. We've spoken to the players for the last probably 4 or 5 seasons about automaticity, the ability to be on automatic mode, the ability to train right, do it right all of the time. So when you are under pressure, you are under stress, you just do it because you know it's there. And I think the defenders have shown that, and when you lose that, actually, early season, we weren't doing as many of them basic things, as many of them good things that are still vital. But on the turnaround, not just our performances with the ball to go and affect it, like I say, outscored many, many powerful sides after the Christmas turn. But our defensive responsibility improved, and I think all of them little details began to flood back into the side. And you like to think over time that's from good practice. People doing it right all of the time, and it comes back into performances, and then things start to turn around. So, yeah, pleased with all them things.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Can I just get a team news check? I know, first of all, Robbie Brady wasn't in the squad last time out.
Yeah, he's pleased to say they had his child who was due at any second. That's why he wasn't in the squad, and all's healthy and all's well. So pleased for Robbie. We've got a couple of other situations where players' wives are heavily pregnant and girlfriends, so we're waiting on news on them. But no, good on that score. And then I think Croucher come back into the thinking. He's trained last week. And looked good. He's felt good. He certainly wants to be involved. It was me really that didn't involve him. And Bardo, he'd come back into the thinking as well. He's only had a couple of days training, but it was a cut, so no twists or strains or anything like that. So hopefully he'll come back into the thinking as well.
So Robbie will be back in as well.
He'll be back in the thinking, yeah.
Yeah, and Lennon and Defoe still unavailable.
Who, sorry?
Lennon.
Yeah, sorry. Stephen's a longer-term situation. Next pre-season we're looking at for him to be feeling right. And Azza's doing great, but whether he'll make it for the last couple of games, we'll have to. He certainly won't make it for the Everton game. And I think it's unlikely. I think he'll be fit, by the way, for the Arsenal game. But I mean, not he wouldn't have had a game, but he'd be fit and well in himself, I think, because he's just about on the cusp of training with us. But he wouldn't have had any action, so it's unlikely, I would say, that we'll put him back into action or to make sure that he's right.
Okay, cheers.
Thank you.
Sean, you mentioned after Sunday at the City game that just reflecting on the injuries that you were sort of looking at it with the staff, and it was obviously it's been an injury-plagued season for Burnley this year. Can you just expand on that a little bit? As in, is that just, do we need to bring somebody in to have a look at what we're doing? Is it just tweaks in training?
No, I think you got to go back to the beginning and realise we had an affected pre-season. The pre-season schedule wasn't the norm. That doesn't mean it's definitely that, but there's a high chance that was involved in it. You're playing far too early into pre-season, and then it's how long you bring your pre-season back. So where do you take it back to? You're middle of June and then you only have a month off, and you go, well, that's a gamble as well. So there was a number of different things. So that I didn't think that was a brilliant start to, if you forget about the games, just the planning of pre-season. We had injuries in pre-season, which you often get, only soft tissue ones. That's the norm, days and a few days here and there. So then you have to worry about the games because they're real games, don't forget. It's not like where you're just pulling people out, putting them in, just to get them fit. You're looking at them going, well, these are real games, Europa games. So you're trying to put out a side that can do the job, but also protecting the players that you need to. And a lot of games as well, a lot more games than we normally have at the beginning of a season. So I think them things are the obvious things. And then behind that, the detail, how we're working, how we're training, the time schedules, recovery, etc., etc.
And a lot's been made, obviously, of the form since the turn of the halfway point. How have the sort of players who perhaps haven't been as involved in the starting 11 as they would like, how much of a support network have they been? The likes of Joe Hart, Stephen Ward, for example.
Yeah, it's always important. The players who are not involved, I've said for many of our good times that we've had here, they've been a massive part of it. The players who have not been playing all the time, because it's not easy then. You've got to stay focused, you've got to be diligent. But equally, the ones who have come in, they get paid back by that, because when they do come in, they're ready. And that's hard as a player. When you're out of the side, it's hard to stay focused. It's hard to stand the detail. It's hard to eat right, look after yourself, be fit as you can. But I think the players deserve a huge amount of credit here for staying on top of themselves, so that when we have needed to change, and we have had players that change, then they've come in and done very well. That's the demand you want, and I think that's a healthy demand.
And we haven't had a question on the goalkeepers for a while, so I'll throw one in.
Good.
Obviously, you've still got 3 England internationals out.
We have, it hasn't changed.
How do you see that developing over the summer with?
Well, we'll see. There's no crystal ball. They all want to play. That I think it'll work itself out one way or the other. But no, there's no other plan at the moment to have 3 competitive keepers, because we've got them.
Yeah, I guess, and might it be that similar to when you were speaking after Sam Vokes left, there was a human element to the decision to let him go and and play some football as well, wasn't there? Is that something that might have to come into the thinking?
Well, there was also a financial element. Don't go too far away from that. So there may well be a financial element again at some point. It is Burnley, don't forget. They do like to look after the finances. But no, it was a win-win. I described that one as the finance worked for the player as well, fresh opportunity, etc., etc. That's always the best scenario when it's a win-win for everyone, but it can't always be found.
And last one, and you may laugh at this, or you may think it's the most ridiculous question you've ever heard in your life. But
I've heard a few this season.
Mark Lawrenson did a Q&A with in the week during which he was asked who would win in a Royal Rumble, wrestling Royal Rumble.
First of all, what's a Royal Rumble? I don't know what that is.
Wrestling.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Wrestling
I do know
Royal
what that
Rumble
is, yeah.
of Premier League managers. And he said, Sean Dyche, by a million miles, he scares me at 1,000 yards. Would you back yourself?
Well, first of all, he must have incredible eyesight. Seeing for 1,000 yards, unless he's, like on the top of a rifle. Maybe, I don't know. Or binoculars, of course. I don't think most people who know me don't find me scary. Looks can be deceiving. But, it's not the highlight of my day that someone thinks I'm going to win a wrestling bout. But
see, I told you to think it was
hey-ho.
a question.
Hey-ho. No, it's a bit of amusement, isn't it? I don't mind that sort of stuff. It's not the first time. It's not the first time I've been linked with that kind of thinking, wrestling or boxing and all these sort of things. Can't do either, by the way. Can't do either.
What your bag there? It's in the car.
You got it all right.
Yeah.
I'll probably leave it again, please.
Yeah, probably. Any more for any more on the top?
Sorry,
Technology there. Technology.
What happened to the old dictaphone? It was so much easier, wasn't it, back in the day?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, chaps.
Charlie, first of all, if we can reflect on the weekend's game, obviously a disappointing result, but overall, was there some degree of pride in the performance?
Yeah, I think so. Like you say, I think we pushed probably the best side in the country for a lot of the game and come away 1-0 defeat, which you could say we were unlucky, but look, we gave it a good go and we tried, and they were just too good for us on the day.
What was it, 29 millimetres? That was the difference?
Yeah, like you say, I think shows how far we've come, that we came off the pitch disappointed really not to get anything out of the game, because I think before kick-off we thought we could. We thought there was a chance for us there, but look, unfortunately not, and look, they're at the top of the league for a reason.
Yeah, you say it shows how far you've come. That can be translated into the season as a whole, can't it? Especially since the turn of the year. What do you attribute the turnaround in form to?
I mean, yeah, like you say, in 2019 our form's been right up there with the best in the league, so that's credit to us and everyone at the club. As for putting a finger on it, I don't know really. I mean, we knew at Christmas that if we didn't change things, we'd be looking at being relegated, and no one wanted that, so it was in our own hands and we had to pull our fingers out and to turn it around.
And it has been a turnaround. 28 points from the last 17 games. If that was translated into the table, you'd be challenging for a European spot.
Yeah, it has been really good form, and that's credit to everyone at this club. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on us at Christmas time, and we've come through it with flying colours. Is
it too simple to say it's just a team coming together, understanding each other, or is there more to that with the distraction, if you like, of Europa League football at the start of the season and all that goes with that, the travelling, the extra fixtures? Yeah, I mean, you could say the Europa League, but I think we've said all along we didn't want to use that as an excuse, and we haven't done a lot of things really. I mean, personnel come in January and they've been a big help. Like young Dwight has been incredible, and there's been a lot of things really, but there's not one thing you can put a finger on and say that's why we're doing better. And what sort of role has the manager played in this run? Because Sean Dyche comes in here week after week. He's fairly pragmatic and certainly doesn't mince his words when he's talking either. What's he like behind the scenes, away from the cameras? Yeah, at Christmas it was a real disappointing time really. It was things weren't looking good, but he's always stayed positive and always assured us that if we play like we do, we'll be okay. And I think just him staying positive has been a big help, and just never get anyone heads down, and he's turned it around. And what about this game on Friday night? Different time, but Burnley with a point to prove after the reverse fixture, perhaps? Yeah, definitely. Look, we're safe now, but by no means we'll be taking our foot off the gas. We want to go there and get revenge, like you say, and there's no reason why we don't feel as though we can get something out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie, was the result against Everton at home the lowest point of your season?
I'd say so, yeah. Just the manner of the defeat and the way everything went, the league table at that point. I'd agree. I'd say that was the lowest point, but in a good way, it was a turning point, I think.
Yeah, it's so rare to see you suffer a defeat like that, especially at home. I mean, how did the players feel directly after the game?
Yeah, we knew things weren't right. It wasn't like us. We've gone from being a good, solid defensive team to letting in 5 at home. We knew that wasn't right, and that wasn't like us, and we knew things had to change and get back to how we know we can play.
Like you're saying about Burnley having a strong end to the season, Everton the same. They've been in good form in recent weeks. Do you know exactly what to expect from them? How much have you seen of their recent games?
Yeah, look, we do all our homework on them, obviously, and watch all the clips. But yeah, we know the form they've been on at home has been very good. They beat a lot of top 6 teams, so it's going to be tough. But like you say, we'll go there and hopefully get a result.
And the challenge for you as a full-back with Richarlison and Bernard, they tend to sort of play between the lines, tuck inside as well. It's a game to concentrate every single moment, I guess.
Yeah, look, the Premier League, I said before, you can't switch off for a second. Any mistake gets punished in this league. It's that good, and the players are top class. So it's another challenge for us, but we'll hopefully enjoy it.
Just going back quickly to the Aguero goal at the weekend, could you guys believe just how close that was when you saw the replays?
Yeah, obviously looking back, we've seen it on the TV, and like you say, it's a couple of millimetres, but in real time I didn't think it had crossed over, but look, it did, and it's unfortunate, but like I said before, it shows how far we've come that we're disappointed in losing in that way.
And Matt, has he been around the training ground practising his clearances this week, looking at his technique? No,
I mean, credit to him, he did well just to get in that position, and yeah, he did so well nearly to stop it, but it's unlucky how it happened.
There's a sense of disappointment that you couldn't disrupt the title race a little bit with a result there.
Yeah, I mean, I think all week we fancied it. We fancied ourselves to get something. If not a win, we thought we could hold them to a point. So like everyone after there was disappointment around because we really did think we could, but it didn't happen. And like I've said, the top of the league for a reason, and the form and the points they've accumulated is incredible.
Have you got any mates who are? Have you got any mates who are Liverpool or City fans that have said anything to you this week?
No, not personally, no. But obviously, you've got Liverpool fans all over on social media, and I think they were hoping that we could get something, but unfortunately not. And it's going to go down to the final day, I think.
Thank you.
Phil, anything? No, all good. Alex, no. Cameras off.